Hey y'all, I'm Val with Our Forever Farm. I'm glad you're here. Today we're making yeast rolls and I'm doing them for Thanksgiving and I want to share it with you. Now, we do it every Thanksgiving, but you don't have to have a holiday to do these yeast rolls. It's my mom's recipe and she got it from a friend, I don't know who, but I make them every year at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's called potato yeast rolls. Let's get to cooking. So here's our ingredients. You're going to need 3/4 cup of creamed potatoes. Now, if you're like me and don't have any leftover mashed potatoes, you can just boil a potato and you'll be fine. You're going to need 3/4 cup of potato water, a can of evaporated milk, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of shortening. I used part butter and part shortening. 3 eggs beaten, 2 packages of yeast. I buy my yeast in bulk, so I had to figure out, what is in an envelope, a little yeast package. And it's 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I just doubled that because it asked for 2 packages. And then we're going to use enough flour to make a soft dough. So I think you all know what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take this time to quote our verse. Psalm 37:4. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of your heart. So I've had several people ask me why I share a Bible verse. It's just something that was laid on my heart to do. So our potatoes are ready. So I'm going to drain them and I'm going to keep the potato water, in a bowl separately. So here I've got a bowl, I've got my colander, and I'm just going to pour the potatoes. I'll turn those off and I'm going to pour them in here and drain them. Now I'm going to pour it quickly back into the pan because I want to keep some of that moisture to cream my potatoes. Now you can cream them just like you're going to mashed potatoes. There's your potato water. You can season them. You can use mashed potatoes. If you have too many potatoes, fry some potato patties. That's also good too. Most of the time I have creamed potatoes in the refrigerator ready for these rolls. It makes it a lot easier, but I didn't today, so we're doing it. And I wanted to show you step by step. So all I'm doing here is getting my stuff out of the way. First of all, I'm just going to cream these potatoes. Now these, you can do this with a mixer. You can do it like I'm doing it. You could add just a little bit more water if you need to make them creamier. All you need is 3/4 cup of water. So you've got plenty, or I have plenty of water to do this with. Now you don't want lumpy potatoes. You want them good and creamed. Now, just a little hint, if you run low on your potato water, add a little water to it. It's no big deal. And if you need more water in here and don't want to use your potato water, just add a little water, hot water to it and cream your potatoes. You also can go ahead and do some butter. It's not going to hurt a thing. But you just want to cream these good where they're not lumpy. Now what I'm doing, since I just manually mash these, I'm just going to stir these up in here and make sure I don't see any lumps. And we're going to add our hot potatoes to a bowl. Then we're going to add our potato water. So I'm just making sure there's no lumps in here. You don't want any lumps. I'm putting the warm potatoes into a bowl. Let's put our water first. So we're going to do our 3/4 cups of water. And then I'm going to measure out, let me set this aside. I'm going to measure out 3/4 cup of potatoes. And yes, I'm using a liquid measuring cup. It's fine. It'll be just fine. Just want to mash those down really good. You want 3/4 cup of potatoes. So that's a little much. So see, I have enough to make fried potato patties. And I might show you that on the next video. It's pretty cool. Now I'm going to add my potatoes. Into the mixture. So next what we're going to do is we're going to add our evaporated milk. And I'm just going to pour this in. And I'm also going to pour my 1 cup of sugar at the same time. So far we've done our potatoes, our potato water, our milk, and our sugar. So next we're adding our 3 eggs. And I'm just putting them in a separate bowl. And we're just gonna beat those really good. Next, what we're gonna do is add our shortening. So this is half a cup of Crisco, off-brand. You can do lard, you can do whatever you have. You can do all butter if you want to, but I'm adding half a cup of Crisco. Let my butter sit out, you don't have to. Now I'm just adding my butter. You can grate this butter, but this is just fine. Cut it in slices, and I just cut it again. And you're just adding your fat to the mixture is all you're doing. You can do it however you want. You can do a full cup of Crisco. You can do a full cup of lard. You can do what I'm doing, half a cup of butter and half a cup of shortening. This is what my mom did, so that's why I'm doing it. I think I told y'all that. So, now remember, this mixture is still a little bit warm. It's not real warm. We're just mixing this all together. And then we're gonna stir it up. I'm gonna go ahead and stir this up first. Try to get this all mixed together. And just break up your Crisco and your butter and just mix it up good. Y'all are really gonna love this recipe, and it's so easy to do and delicious. Next, what I'm gonna do is just gonna slowly add our eggs to the mixture. And of course, this is cooling it all down, and it's fine. If it is extra warm, you want to make sure and stir your eggs. You don't want to scramble your eggs in your yeast rolls. Mine's cooled down enough to where it's not going to do that. So I'm just going to mix this all together. So far, we have our creamed potatoes. We have our 3/4 cup of potato water. We have our can of evaporated milk, a cup of sugar, and a cup of fat. And I did half shortening and half butter. And then we added our 3 eggs. You can still see the shortening in here, and that's fine. You just want to mix it all together good. Now the recipe calls for 2 packages of yeast. It says to sprinkle the yeast over the mixture. Now, each package of yeast, in case you buy yours in bulk like I do, is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So in my case, buying it in bulk, I added 4 1/2 teaspoons of yeast. I had to think. And then you just want to stir, stir, stir until your yeast is all dissolved. So as you can still see the shortening and the butter. But our goal here is to dissolve the yeast. Just stir, stir, stir. Now, I buy my yeast in bulk, like I told you, and I keep it in the freezer. If you buy the packets, you also can keep it in the freezer, which keeps it fresh. In this recipe, we're not proofing the yeast. Just make sure your yeast is nice and fresh. Stir, stir, stir. Okay, we've added all our ingredients except the flour. Now, I don't normally measure this out. I've made this so many years. My mom used to make this, and I've told y'all before on the video. We used to go camping maybe every other weekend. I've started out in a camper truck with the little camper shell, and then we ended up buying a camper, and this is when I was a little girl. Sweet memories. My daddy bought a boat. It was lots of fun. Sweet memories until I got a teenager, and then I didn't want to go with them anymore because, you know, I didn't want to go with them. I was a teenager. I knew it all, you know. So, but since I became an adult, I make these. I've made these. We've been married 45 years. I've probably made them 46 years. But we're going to add our flour now. I use self-rising. Nobody ever told me if it's self-rising or all-purpose that you use, but my mom always used self-rising, so that's what I use. I'm going to measure this out for you. Like I say, I don't usually measure this out. I'm going to measure it out, and every time you do it, it will be different. Several years ago, I was teaching one of my granddaughters how to make these yeast rolls. And she said, "Look, Gran," she said, "that looks like cottage cheese." And it really does. That shortening and that butter on top. I'm using a 1/2 cup measurement. And we're going to start out adding just roughly a 1/2 cup. So that's 1. 2, that's 3 cups, and we're just going to stir this up. So the goal here is to get enough flour in there that we can easily make our rolls with our hands by rolling our dough. Now, if it was raining outside, it would make a difference. When you make bread, the weather matters. If your house is cool, it matters. If it's too warm, it matters. So that's why you never know how much flour it's going to take. So I'm going to add another probably 2 cups. Remember, this is 1/2 cup measurements. This is self-rising flour. I think I did 4. We're just going to stir it and stir it and stir it. Now, you don't have to sift this or anything like that. You just stir. But you don't want lumps in it. That's why I said make sure your potatoes are not lumpy. You don't want lumpy potatoes in here. But as you can see, you don't see the Crisco anymore, the shortening. Mine's not Crisco, it's an off-brand. I'm just stirring this until I get all that flour incorporated. Now, every time you make this, you will see that it's different, and not the recipe, but the amount of flour. And you want it to get to a dough consistency that you can work and make rolls. And you'll add more flour as you make your rolls. So as you can see, this is getting thicker and thicker, stirring it up really good. All right, I'm going to add another cup. Don't worry, y'all, I got plenty of flour. I keep my flour in the in the freezer, and except for when I put it in a jar, and I know I'll use it within a week or so. That's just a safety thing. Just want to keep it good and fresh. So I'm just going to just keep stirring. Just keep turning your bowl, keep stirring. You can see now it's really getting to where you probably can handle it. 6 cups is probably going to be where we're at for now. My bowl that I'm making my bread in, a friend gave me several of these, and I treasure them. When I had chemo, a friend of mine that I really didn't know that well, I knew of her. She lives out of town, and I knew of her, and I knew she was a good person. She's in our church, in our assembly, but she would send me something just about every day that I had chemo. It was amazing. And one day I got this huge bowl package, and it was these bowls. I love them. She sent me so many things just to encourage me when I had chemo, and it did. Believe me, I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it makes me want to help others too. So you just want to keep stirring this. This is the consistency that we want. Let's see if you can see it. Thick enough. Now you know that you're going to have to use more flour to roll the rolls, But this is the consistency we want. We want to make sure that flour is incorporated very good. So I'm gonna finish stirring this up. Gives your arms a good workout, y'all. And then I'll show you what we do next. So I can't tell you exactly how many rolls this makes because like I say, you use different amount of flour every time you make this, but it makes a lot. It makes enough for my family, and I think we're between 16 maybe and 18 with everybody there. I don't really know how many's there. I haven't counted in a while, but I know at least 15, 16, and it could be up to 18, I don't know. And if friends come, we have more. So the next thing we're gonna do is we are gonna grease a bowl, and we're gonna place this dough in a bowl. Putting some oil in this big bowl. So all I'm gonna do is just put a couple of tablespoons of oil in this bowl. I'm using olive oil. You can use whatever you want. And all I'm gonna do is just grease this really good. You don't want to put too much oil. You don't want it oily, but you don't want it to stick either. So this is the bowl I'm gonna put it in to let this dough rise. This is so good and so easy, y'all. It's perfect for Thanksgiving. It's actually perfect breakfast, anything. Sometimes I'll make it and just have it ready in the refrigerator, you know, to use all the time because it'll stay in the refrigerator. Again, I think I've told you this. It'll stay in there for 3 weeks. So, get this off the Danish whisk. And that is a Danish whisk. You can get on Amazon. And if I think about it, I will try my best to put a link. I am not affiliated with them at all, but it is a great thing to use with dough. So right now, all I'm doing is taking my dough, and you can see how thick it is. These gloves are so big. I hate using gloves. So next, what I do is I just put some saran wrap of some kind over the bowl and cover it good. I hate this stuff, y'all. And cover it real good because you don't really want any air to get in here. What we're gonna do now is we're just gonna let this rise. And I really wrap this up. Now I'm gonna put a towel over it too, but I really wrap this up with plastic wrap. My little thingy came loose, so I have a lot of trouble with this thing. Y'all saw it before. All right, so what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna set it on top of my stove because I'm gonna be cooking cornbread. I've got some of my cornbread for my dressing done, but I need to make a couple of more big pans of cornbread for our dressing that we're making for Thanksgiving. I try to do everything as much as I can ahead of time. So I'm gonna set this on the stove. I'm leaving my overhead light on. Looks like I'm out of bulb. I need to get Sweet Hunter to fix that. And then I'm gonna put a towel over this, and maybe even 2 towels just to keep it extra warm. There we go. And my oven will be warm because I'm gonna be cooking cornbread. So it will be warm. Now we're gonna let this rise for about 2 hours. So if you're making this along with me, just find something else to do. Prepare your supper. Sweet Hunter just called me and said he was leaving to go deer hunting. And he said, do I need to stop and get me something to eat, or you gonna have something? I've already got it planned. So I had we're eating out of our freezer right now. We're trying to get everything cleaned out of our freezer. So I had some Ritz cracker chicken that I made in March of 2023 in the freezer. So I'm letting that thaw out. I'm gonna fix some cowboy candy over some cream cheese. And of course we'll have these rolls because I want to cook a few just to show you what they look like. They're so good. I could eat them for a meal. Just butter them up really good. So 2 hours in a bowl covered with saran wrap, covered with a couple of good towels, and keep it in a warm place. Like I say, my house I get hot cooking, so my house is really cool and to everybody else's standards. But my oven will be on, which should heat the dough, and it's gonna rise some. It's been 2 hours now. Let's look at our dough. In the meantime, I've made potato patties, cornbread for our chicken and dressing on Thanksgiving. I warmed up the Ritz cracker chicken from the freezer. So this oven has been very warm, and as you can see, it's more than doubled in size. Now look at this beautiful dough. You can see it's got the oil around it so it's not sticking. So I'm going to turn our oven on to 400, I think. Now, like I say, my oven is pretty warm because we've been cooking a lot today and preparing for Thanksgiving and supper. We get the flour. Now we're probably going to need a little bit more flour than this if I was guessing. But the main thing is you want to get enough on your hands to where the dough doesn't stick. So I'm going to get a paper plate and just dump this out on it. Now I am going to cook some rolls just to show you what they look like, but the rest will go in the refrigerator for Thanksgiving Day. Now, this is the next step. You want to get your hands very floured where the dough won't stick. And then we're going to come back to the dough, and I like to sprinkle some on here. Just sprinkle it on the top. And then what we're going to do is punch this down. Now you may have to keep putting flour on your hand. You're punching the air out of it. It's not going to hurt it having a little bit of flour in there because we're going to be adding flour as we roll them. And we're just going to punch it down. That just removes the air. And that's it. No kneading, no nothing. So right now I'm going to roll several out, and then I'm going to put the rest in the refrigerator to save for Thanksgiving. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to flour my hands just like I would for biscuits. Let me see if I can get you back where you can see this. I'm just going to flour my hands just like I would for biscuits. And then I'm just going to dip the rolls out and roll it. And I've showed you many times how to roll a biscuit. This is exactly what you're gonna do, is just roll this into a ball and then mash it down. Now, you're not gonna do them the exact size that you think they ought to be because they are gonna rise. So I'm just gonna cook 4 or 5 because it's just us here tonight, and I made these for Thanksgiving. Now you can do these in a cookie sheet. You don't have to do it on an iron skillet. I do love an iron skillet, but when I cook them for the family, it'll be a full-size cookie sheet. I think I'm just gonna do 4. You just wanna get flour, get them floured really good. And then you just wanna roll them like this. Let me get just a little more flour. Roll them in a ball and then just tuck it under on the edge. You saw me do that before. This is the same way I roll biscuits. All right, I'm just doing these 4 and I'll show you what they look like when they come out of the oven. I have a big mess here. So I have these bowls. My big bowl that I usually put all the dough in is in the freezer with Brunswick stew in it. This dough will stay in the refrigerator for 3 weeks. And you can just work it whenever you want to. Just get you 4 or 5 out like I'm doing. Now our oven is preheating, and while it's preheating, I'm also letting those rest for 30 more minutes. And then I'm gonna put a slice of butter on them and put them in the oven. Okay, so I ended up putting this in 1 bowl. I thought it might need 2 bowls, but as you can see, there's plenty of room if it does rise, if I wanna let it rise in this bowl. But right now, we've punched it down. We're putting in the refrigerator. It'll last 3 weeks in the refrigerator. It's a week before Thanksgiving. I've got my rolls done, except for rolling them out. So normally I would make a lot more than this, but because they're for Thanksgiving, I just made 4 just to show you what they look like and for Sweet Hunter to have some bread for supper. I love these rolls. They're so good. So right now, I just go ahead and I put butter on these rolls. Yes, I keep my butter out, and I keep it out where it'll be nice and soft. Now again, my oven is preheating to 400. I honestly can't remember what Mama did it on, but her recipe doesn't say. It just says to, let's see what it says. It says to punch down the dough well, place in the refrigerator until ready to use, then remove, cook as biscuits on a greased cookie sheet, let rise 30 minutes before cooking. So that's what we're doing right now. We're just letting them rise. Actually, we're just letting them rest because I just rolled those out. And then we'll cook them just like biscuits. Okay. Now these have been sitting here maybe 15 minutes. I'm just not one to wait too long. But if they had came out of the refrigerator, you know, and had been in there a week or so, or a few days, or even a day, if they were cold, I would definitely let them rise, you know, longer. But right now I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven. It's preheated at 400 degrees. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, so let's see. I've got all my iron skillets out here that I washed. I put them in the oven after I washed them. I dry them real good, put them in the oven, and then I let them sit out to cool. And then I re-season them with some kind of oil when they're warm. Yes, these are perfect. So these are ready to eat. Look at that butter. Oh my goodness. Look how pretty. And see how they rose so big? So don't make them real big unless you want big rolls because they do double in size. So aren't those pretty? Now remember, these are good warmed up. They are good. The dough's good in the refrigerator for up to 3 weeks. I have left it 4 and it's still good to use. You can make just a few or you can make a whole lot. So these also can be warmed up or froze after you cook them. So I'm gonna let these cool just a minute because you know me and hot stuff. And then we're gonna do a taste test. So just a better little view of this. Look at this and look at the bottom. Whew, it's hot too. So this is just the way I season my iron skillets after I use them. Cooking seasons them, but you can go the extra mile to have really good seasoned iron skillets by after you wash them. And yes, you can use soap if you don't just let it sit in soap and dry them. And then I put them, if I have a warm oven, I stick them in there. And then I put a little oil or spray some Pam on the inside of the skillet and wipe them out with a paper towel. So here we go. I'm tired, so I'm ready to get this done. And I'm ready to eat. So tonight we're having a hodgepodge supper. It's cowboy candy with cream cheese. It's, well, I keep forgetting the name of it. Ritz cracker chicken that I had in the freezer. And I made potato patties. And I did a video on the potato patties. So y'all watch that. It'll be next probably. Okay, y'all can see my cut finger. I cut it on the foil. So I want to show you how beautiful this is. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? That is so pretty. So very pretty. Now we're gonna eat it. Now, remember I put butter on it before I cooked it. That's the way I like to do it. That's so good. And use salted butter. I'm telling you, it's good. It just makes these rolls melt in your mouth. They're so good. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? There's my supper. Let me show you one more opening it up. Oh, this one's hot. It's still been on the iron skillet, so it's hot. Woo, I don't know if I can do it or not. So, here we are. I don't think I can. I can't, I'm sorry. That is hot. So I'm going to set them off on a paper plate and let them cool where I can have take two and try this again. Let's try it one more time. That was really hot being on the iron skillet. So I just took them all off. So here it is. Look at the bottom, the butter on top. I'm telling you, salted butter, that's what it's all about. There's a place in our hometown that has biscuits and they use salted butter on the top. It's just delicious, but look at that. My goodness. Isn't that delicious looking? I'm going to eat the rest of mine. Sweet Hunter's not home yet, but he'll have it soon. Aren't these beautiful? If you want to impress your family, try these. Hey, y'all go cook something. It's fun.